Hello beautiful people and welcome. In this video we're going to be writing the cubic function given a graph. So we're going to kind of work backwards. Instead of graphing, we're going to take the given graph and give them a equation or write a function. Let's go ahead and disclaimer time. If I make a mistake, I am human. Let me learn from my mistakes by letting me know where it is. Let's review graphing just a little bit. So I'm going to write out a quick cubic function. Let's do g of x is equal to, let's do 1/3 x plus 6 cubed minus, let's do minus 1. Now, I've shown you two ways of graphing before. I'm going to show you a third one. I mentioned it this way before in the last video. However, I do want to kind of make it a little bit easier for you guys. So let's do a thinking bubble. The first thing I want to do is I want to choose my pretty points. Okay, so now pretty points are going to be this. I want to choose an x value, and that's my input. For my output is whatever my input gives me, right? You plug in an input, you get an output. Now, let's translate this before I do anything in the thinking bubble. I have a 1/3. That means I have a vertical compression by 1/3. I have a plus 6 on the inside. That means I have a horizontal shift left by 6. So I'm going left 6. And I have a plus 1 outside of the bubble. That means I am going down 1. Now, you don't actually have to write horizontal shift left by 6. You can just give me an arrow for my class. Understand that if you're going left, you are doing a horizontal shift. All right. Now that we have translated, let's go ahead and graph this by not using the translation. We're going to do the translation without actually identifying it. So we're going to take the bubble. I'm looking for a highlighter here real quick. Let me grab a highlighter. Where's my highlighter? Where are my highlighters? Well, I wasn't planning on using pink, but let's use pink. Here's my bubble. Everything that is being cubed is your bubble. Take your bubble. X plus 6 is my bubble. And set it equal to 1. Take your bubble again, set it equal to 0. And take your bubble for the third time and set it equal to -1. Notice these are your reference points for your parent function. Okay, and by reference point, I mean the x values of those reference points. 1, 0, and -1. Those are your pretty numbers, pretty points. Okay, now you're going to solve, just like you would usually. So I'm going to add 6 to both, I'm going to subtract 6. So x is equal to -5. So -5 is one of my x values. Now I'm going to do it again. -6 minus 6, -6 is my input. Again, -6 minus 6, x is equal to -7. So -7 is another one of my inputs. So now what I get to do is I'm going to make this into my equation. And I'm going to just start plugging in my x values. So I have x. Oh, I don't have an x. I have a 5. -5. -5 plus 6 cubed minus 1. So I have 1/3. 1 cubed minus 1. So then I have 1/3 times 1 minus 1, which is 1/3 minus 1. So that means my y, my output, is equal to 2/3. In this case, -2/3. Do that again for the rest of them. So I have -6 here. This is what, 0. I have -1. And then our third one, so here's 1, 2. Do our third one of -7. What is this? This is -1. Hesitated for a second. I hope you noticed that. Hesitated. Okay, so I have 1/3 times -1 minus 1. So I have -1/3 minus 1. So that means I have -1 and 1/3 for my points. So these could be your points. Notice that we have our vertex. Vertex is whatever you see here opposite, which is -6, and whatever you actually have here, which is -1. So -6, -1, that is our vertex. Super important. Now also notice that we could have done this differently. So I'm going to do another thinking bubble. Now let's say I don't want 1 and -1. I wanted something else. I could do, for example, x plus 6. I know that I'm going to be taking 1/3 of whatever this value is. So I need to make sure that I can undo that. So I need something that is divided by 3 after it is cubed. So if I have, and it's kind of like a guessing game. So I know that 27 is divided by 3 because 9 and 27. So cube root of 27 is 3. So if I set this equal to 3, I'm going to subtract 6. So x is equal to -3. So when I go here to do my equation, and if I chose -3 as my x value, it ends up giving me a pretty number because I chose a pretty number to begin with, right? I chose an x value that gives me a pretty bubble that I can take a cube from. Not a cube, I can divide by 3. So if I have 1/3, and then this is -3 plus 6 cubed minus 1, I have 1/3. This gives me, what does this give me? This gives me -3 cubed. So I have 1/3, and this gives me -27 minus 1. So I have -9 minus 1, which gives me -10. So I can easily do, my input is -3. So if we have our x and y, my input is -3, my output is -10. Now again, you don't have to choose 1, 0, -1. 0 you have to, okay? Use 0. 0 is going to be the easiest one because you're just going to end up multiplying. That's going to give you your vertex. But the other two, 1 and -1, choose prettier points than that because you're going to end up with fractions sometimes. Although that's fine, I'm okay with that. But I would say choose your pretty points because then you can simplify it better. All right, let's actually go through graphing. No, we're not doing graphing. We are writing the equation. Okay, so given a graph, you're going to write the equation for it. So recall our standard form or our general form. And so we need the vertex. That is our starting point. Like that's the main information that we need. So vertex is whatever you see here. It's going to be the opposite. And then you're just going to use k. K is outside the bubble. So we're doing h, comma, k. And I'm going to make sure that you guys are aware that h is the opposite of what you see. It's you actually want the h. You don't want the minus. So for h, choose, or whatever you see is the opposite. So opposite of what you see. Let's do some examples. Examples. Kind of saved that one if you guys saw that. All right, let's do some examples. So let's say we have 2 comma x minus 3 cubed minus 4. I have a minus 3 here, so that means I'm going to choose the opposite. So I have a positive 3. I have a minus 4 outside the bubble. So if it's outside the bubble, it remains the same, which is minus 4, and that's going to be your vertex. Now, vertex, again, in a increasing graph is going to be the middle point where you're changing, okay, from going down to going up. Same thing if it's a decreasing, just make sure you have decreasing. So this is increasing, this is decreasing. However, it's still that middle point there, that change. Right, now that we have our vertex, let's write you some steps before doing an example. So steps to writing an equation. Step number 1, you want to write out your equation, and that's general form. You want your equation in general form. So if you need to simplify something, move things aside, go ahead and do that, but you want it in general form. Step number 2 is identify your vertex. And again, vertex is h, k, where h is the opposite of whatever you see. Step 3 is you're going to substitute in h and k into equation. So at this point, you can start using y if you want. If you want to keep f of x, that's fine. Now remember, h is always the opposite, okay? So h. So if you have a positive h, you're going to end up with a negative right here. If you have a negative h, you're going to end up with a positive. It's just the h, remember? This sign, this minus in front of h in the bubble means opposite. And k is just k, it's outside the bubble. We just write whatever it is. Opposite for inside bubble. So once we've substituted that, step number 4 is you're going to solve for a. Now a is out here right in front, right here. You're going to find a. So how do you find a? Is you're going to choose a pretty point on the graph. That is not your vertex. You're going to take that point you have an x, and you have a y. That's what we're looking for, y, but that's okay. You have an x and y, and you're going to substitute in to the equation. So you have f of x, but f of x is really y. So you're going to say f of x is equal to a x minus h cubed plus k. You're going to take the value for x, you're going to plug it in. You're going to take the value for y, you're going to plug it in. So you have y and you have x that you are substituting in, or you're plugging in the values in for. And then you're going to simplify and solve for y. Oh, just kidding. What are we solving for? A. We're solving for a. Once you have that, you have step number 5. Oh, you can't see. Step number 5 is write out your final answer. And again, it is going to be f of x is equal to a times x minus 4. Oh, x minus 4. I don't know where the 4 came on. H. That's an h, not a 4. Plus k, and don't forget that the function is a cubic function, so we need the 3 as an exponent. Obviously, you're going to be changing. So your a is going to be changed. Your x is not going to be changed. So you're putting back the x. The h is changed and the k is changed. So you have 3 things ultimately that you're going to change, and then that's it. All right, let's do the example. Keep these steps out because we're going to be referencing them. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video just for a second. So I'm going to graph a few so then we can write out their equation. All right, beautiful people, we're back. So I went ahead and I took two examples that we're going to be writing the equations for. Now, typically you will not be given these points. I just wanted you to know that these are the points that I graphed. But again, typically all you're going to see is a graph, and then it's going to ask you to write the equation. Again, because we are doing this through a video, I wanted you to be able to graph this in your notes without any guessing as to what these are. Take a few moments, pause this, and then graph, and then we'll continue. I, of course, can just go ahead and keep talking, but as always, please pause, draw this out, and then unpause so you can write the equation. All right, I have my steps out in front. So step number one is to write out the equation. I already did that here. Step number two is identify the vertex. Now, here's the thing that I want to know. First of all, I know that the vertex is going to be in the middle of those 2 points. It's where the down goes into up. Is the function, it's kind of a side note, is the function increasing or decreasing? Is it increasing or decreasing? Well, if it is increasing from left to right, it's going up a hill. If it is decreasing, it's going down a hill. So if this increasing or decreasing, you can see that it's actually increasing from left to right. So that means we have an increasing function. That means our function is going to be positive. If you have a decreasing, you know your a value is going to be negative. That's a side note. You don't have to know this at this exact moment, but you will in the next example. So this is an increasing function. We know a is going to be positive. Now let's go back to our vertex. Our vertex is the center point, which is this point here. We have to figure out what that point is. That point is 1, 2, 3, 4, comma, negative 2. So now that we have our vertex, we are going to be substituting in for h and k. Now remember, h is always the opposite of what you see. So if I see a minus h, you're going to do a positive. So let me change colors here. Trying to keep it interesting for you guys. I'm doing all these colors. All right, so now we have f of x is equal to a times x. Now, here's my vertex. Vertex is 4, comma, negative 2. H, comma, k. I see a positive 4, so that means I'm going to do a minus 4 inside. Outside the bubble, you keep it the same. K is negative 2, so we have negative 2. Now notice that I put a plus negative 2. You don't have to. We'll change that in our next step. Now, after that, we have our vertex. And what's our next step? Actually, you know what? It's bugging me. Let me rewrite that without the plus and negative. So we have a, comma, x minus 4, cubed. And then we just have a minus 2. So whatever you have here for k, you can just put here. So this is step number 1. This is step number 2. Step number 3 says substitute in h and k into the equation. I did that. So this is step 2. This is step 3. Step number 4, find a. Choose a pretty point on the graph that is not the vertex. Okay, so what does it mean, pretty point? In my opinion, pretty point means no fractions, even though fractions want to be left. Pretty point is something that is really close to our vertex. However, we just want it to be a whole number that's not going to be complicated. Like, for example, I can choose something that's like all the way up to 67, but 67 to me is not a pretty number. 1 is a pretty number. So I'm going to choose this number right here. I'm going to choose that one. If you want to choose this one, that's fine. I'm going to choose that one just because I want to. Doesn't matter which one you choose as long as it's pretty. And then you're going to label that. So I have an X and a Y. And so for step number 4 says find A, choose a pretty point, which we did. That is not the vertex. Take that point, X and Y, and substitute it into the equation. All right, so here's the equation. F of x is equal to a times x minus 4 cubed minus 2. So this right here is your y. So y is 1. Then we have a. We don't know what a is. A is what we're trying to solve for. X is 5. Then we have a minus 4 cubed minus 2. Take that point, x and y, substitute it into the equation. We did that. After that, you're going to simplify and solve for a. We want a by itself, so we're going to go back to integrated math 1, dotted line. Simplify PEMDAS. I have a 1 on this side. I have a times 5 minus 4 is 1 cubed. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So then I have 3. Here I have a times 1 cubed. 1 cubed is just 1, so I have a is equal to 3. Okay, so now I solved for a. I did that. So then step number 5 is write down your final answer. So step number 5, here's my final answer. So we are changing 3 things. We are changing a, f of x is equal to a, which is 3. X is the same. H we are changing, which is minus 4 cubed. And we're changing our k value, which is a minus 2. Here is your equation for the given graph. Okay, so remember how I said this doesn't really matter right now? It does matter now. So is the function increasing or decreasing? This is your a value, or what's in front of a value. Is your function positive or negative? Since this is an increasing function, you know that the function is going to be positive. So if we look at our final answer, we should have no negative out for our a value. If it is negative and you have an increasing function, something went wrong. Let's go ahead and do another one. Notice again, is this function increasing or decreasing? Is it going up, left to right, or is it going down from left to right? And in this case, it is going down. So we have a decreasing function. So we know that we're going to have a negative function with a negative out in front. Let's follow our steps. Step number 1, write out your general form, which is f of x is equal to a times x minus h cubed plus k. Why cubed? Because this is a cubic function. You need to see this and know that you're going to have a cube. All right, step number 1 is done. Step number 2 is vertex. What is our vertex? Vertex is the center point, which is this one here. So I have 1, 2, so negative 2, and I go up 3. You're going to identify which one's h, which one's k. Here's h, here's k. So then, step number 3, plug it into your equation. Here's f of x is equal to 3, comma, x. Here's a minus 2. So in our equation, we're writing plus 2, the opposite, cubed. And then 3 is the same, so we have a positive 3. It's outside the bubble, so we are not doing opposite again. This is a minus 2, so we do a plus 2 on the inside of the bubble. Inside of the bubble, you always do opposite. After, I don't know why I put 3 there. That's not right. I think I was looking at the previous example. That's an A. We still have an A there. We don't know what A is. That's our next step. Step number 4, find A. Step number 4, I'm actually going to rewrite this as y equals, just because it's easier when you're plugging in numbers in for x and y. Choose your point. Which point do you want? It doesn't matter. Just choose one. I'm going to choose this one here. Maybe I always go to the one that's on top. It doesn't matter. So I have 1, 2, 3. I have negative 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, 4. So negative 3, 4. So that means negative 3, 4 is what I'm choosing. Here's x, here's y. So that means I'm going to have 4 is equal to a times negative 3 plus 2 cubed plus 3. Let's simplify that. I have 4 is equal to a times negative 1 cubed plus 3. So that means I have 4 is equal to a times negative 1 plus 3. I'm going to subtract 3 again. From both sides, we want to get a by itself, so I'm going to subtract 3 both sides. Running out of room, so I'm going to continue writing a little bit off to the side. So I have 4 minus 3 is equal to a times negative 1. So that means I have 1 is equal to negative 1 times a, or you could just say negative a. So that means a is negative 1. So okay, that's step number 4. Figure out what a is. A is negative 1. Now, this is where you need to start checking if it makes sense. Is a negative? Is our function decreasing? Should I have a negative? And yes, our function is decreasing. We should have a negative. There's our negative, and so everything is going according to plan. Okay, step number 5, write out your final answer. F of x is equal to your a value, which is negative 1. You can just write negative if you want. You are in IM3. Times what is it? It is times, what am I doing? X. What's our h is positive 2 cubed plus 3 is our final answer. Hope you enjoyed writing the equations, the functions for the given graphs. As always, if I make a mistake, let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.